Hey friends, it's yours truly here, Dereck. Left work early today out of exhaustion. I'm a little revived, but I needed to leave because work is just exhausting. Probably like the rest of you guys that work, if you do your work halfway decent, then they just expect that much more, which just drives you insane and wears you the hell out, which is where I'm at today. So I came home. And before I go lay down, I thought I would go ahead and answer Jonas's three-question thread. And the first two, actually, they're all three. All three questions are cool. I have to kind of repeat myself, though, to a degree in answering these questions, okay, namely on number one. So the first question is, show three records that you would show a child to represent yourself. And that's a neat question. It's a neat question, and so for me it was pretty straightforward, the answer. The first two are real obvious, and then the last one I will talk about a little bit. First one is Faust, and this one represents the explorer, adventurous part of me, the part that is interested in expression beyond just standard accepted norms. My problem with a lot of commercial AOR music is that it's tailor-made. Not that it's bad, but it's been designed as a product. And that has its place, but I'm more interested in hearing music that people make because they have to. They don't know what to do else with themselves. If there's something inside that says, I've got to do this, they get a flash of creativity. That's what interests me in music, art, and life in general, is true individuality, and conformity to the point that we can live as a society is important, but the whole idea of squashing people's personalities in order to fit in and get along, I just hate that, and I look for that in music, people who are pushing outside of that. Well, I don't want to sound like so-and-so, or I don't want to do ABC to make sure I get on the radio. Not interested in that music, Some of that is good, but what I want to hear is the music that you can't help make. And that is a big part of who I am. The next record that I would show a child, and I went through this with the kids that I helped to raise, because they didn't give a crap about the music I like, And I just, after a while realized that, well, it's just the same old thing. Just like me and my parents, they need to find out their own music. But an album that represents a whole lot of my life is Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I feel like I grew up in a lot of ways. Coming out of adolescence into early adulthood is when this album hit, about 1975. And that I graduated from high school in 73. And, right out of high school, depending on who you are, it's a tumultuous, scary, chaotic time, and this album really was the soundtrack to a lot of what was going on, a lot of learning, growing, and experiencing going on. That album captures it all. I believe that if I had to tell my life story, I could do it through that one album, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. So that would be the second one. And the third record that I would show a child to represent me, although the child probably wouldn't understand for a while, but you're planting seeds when you share things with children that they'll understand later. The third one would be James Brown's Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. And this one would be because of the fact that on the surface, a person could really misread me and think I'm something like an Uncle Tom or something, or that I'm not proud to be black because most of the music I listen to is rock-based, or a lot of the artists that I listen to, on the surface it looks like they're white or something. And believe me, I'm talking about this because this has been my life. I have been dealing with this since childhood. That I was some kind of misfit because I liked the Beatles, that I wasn't proud to be black, or that I was ashamed of my race because I listened to more rock than soul music, which is absolute crap. And what it indicates to me is a shallowness, or a lack of perception, or a lack of depth of perception on other people's parts. I know intrinsically in my soul that just because I have a dark hue and the direct lines of my people go back to a certain part of this planet, I know that that really doesn't separate me at all ultimately from any of the other people on this planet. I really truly take that for granted. That's a truth to me, that we're all the same. And so I would show this to let them know that I'm a whole person. I'm aware of my ethnic heritage, very proud of it, but I have transcended it in my mind. I am a member of this planet. All music belongs to me. All cultures are connected somehow. And one more thing I'm going to try to say, I hope I can say it well, is I think that a lot of people have been fooled by this idea. Historically, we've had this whole idea that you go back to black music and gospel and roots because it's more authentic, you know, and it's got soul. And that's bullshit. All music has soul. All music is authentic. I discovered as a child, thankfully, before I was too brainwashed, that I could hear and feel people, period. So as a child, just like James Brown or like someone like Al Hibbler or T-Bone Walker would make the hairs on my neck stand on end, or like Bobby Blue Bland or Mahalia Jackson, when they would shout that gospel and it would just stir your soul. Thankfully, before I was completely contaminated, I could feel that, and still do, thankfully. I held on to it. I felt that when I heard Roy Orbison. I had the hairs on my neck stand up on end the first time I heard Yesterday by the Beatles. Folk musics from an early age. I connected with my Irish roots through the music, not even really understanding that I'm Irish. I feel the music. You tell me why, but I deeply feel the folk musics of many parts of the world, Japan, parts of Europe. What I'm trying to say is I think that we've been fooled by the surface of things, thinking that black music is somehow better, deeper, more spiritual, more soulful. I'm here to tell you, as one who could play that card and knows it from the inside, it's not true. And so I would like the child to know that I'm a member of this planet, and all people are in all ways equal and have something of deep substance. This idea that the black man has some of the corner and soul is just a fucking lie. Okay? I love everyone. I love everyone, and all of us have something. And this idea that I have to somehow be listening to R&B and rap to be a black person is bullshit. And I would really want to teach that to, I would want that a child to know that about me, okay? All right, second question. Show 3 records that represent your parents. Okay. And the 3 records I chose are they still here? They are. Well, the first one is Cannonball Adderly Quintet in Chicago. A number of reasons. My dad is originally from Kentucky, but he was raised in Chicago. He became a jazz musician there, was running the streets and the clubs with these guys, knew Cannonball, knew Coltrane, knew the scene, and he's also in the audience of this recording. He was at this show. As a child, when he would play it and talk about it, I could only partially catch the story. Didn't quite understand what all he was saying in his excitement. Sometimes we would play this and sharing it with friends. As I now understand, well, he was at the show, so he knows this music inside and out. And I do too, because this is one of his favorite albums, and he played it a lot. So when this starts up, I can hum the solos. I've played it so many times. So that's one. Another album that I chose to represent, did I pull it? To represent my family is, I was just showing it to Jeff. It's got to be right here. I don't want to start this video over again. The record should be right here. Please excuse me as I dig. Here it is. The next record that I chose to represent my parents is Clifford Brown with strings. Max Roach is the drummer in here, and this album came out maybe about 1957, 58. This is an original copy. It's beat to hell. I don't think it's my dad's copy, but it looks about like my dad's copy. He was rough on records. This reminds me of good times. When this record played, when my dad played this record, things were okay. It's mellow. Willow Weep for me is the song I remember in particular. That's my favorite version of that song is on here by Clifford Brown. Just a beautiful tone. So this record represents the good part of my childhood with my parents. When my dad was able to play this music, I knew he was in a good mood. Things were okay. So that represents, I need to pull the next one. I thought I had pulled it to represent my mom in particular. Here we go. It is the best of Ella Fitzgerald. My mother was a jazz and gospel singer before she became ill and became deaf. And she went to the Oberlin Conservatory of Music, one of the first black women to attend there. I was talking to my sisters and brother over the weekend, and they're telling me, yes, she did actually graduate. But I dare say that my mother was probably just as good of a singer or close to Ella in her day. And had things gone differently, maybe I'd be holding her album to show you. But this represents my mom in that she was a jazz singer and a gospel singer, and she was highly, highly accomplished at it, but she became sick, deaf, and that was the end of that. So those records represent my parents. The last question is a fun one, and here's my answer. It says, pick 3 vinyl community members and show for one record from your collection that you think represents it. And I chose to start with Jeff Record Man 1958 because he's my friend and I know him. And this record does represent him. Help Yourself. In a lot of ways. The name of the band, I think, represents Jeff. He is a scrappy little guy. He's a short guy, but don't you mess with him. He will kick your ass. You know what I'm saying? Jeff is a mighty dynamo of a man. And Help Yourself is his creed. Take care of things, okay? But also, I know he just loves this band, Help Yourself, and this particular era of English rock, where it's straight ahead, there's an element of country, there's an element of folk, and there's an element of prog. And I know that all those things really appeal to Jeff. I also understand that he really does love roots music, blues and folk and stuff, and that's all in here. So this represents Jeff, Record Man 1958. The next 2 people I picked, I'll just show what I think represents them. I don't know if I'm going to get it right. But I chose Grecian Thunder. Andreas, my brother. I think I'll really like what you said about me. I really do. Thank you. I chose to represent you out of my collection, Devo. Are we not men? We are Devo. I pick up on a very large, playful side of you. Fun-loving, irreverent, but not stupid. And that was the thing that I picked up about Devo right away, was that they seemed to be gimmicky and silly, but there was a whole lot of gray matter going on underneath the surface. These guys had a master plan that could have made them world dominators. But the music was so fun and so fresh that we just fell in love with the music, you know. And I chose this to represent Grecian Thunder. His irreverentness, his playfulness, and still his musicality. This is good music. Devo really could play. And the third person that I chose to try to represent, and I do mean try, because I'd love to get to know this man. I wish I could go out and have coffee with him. I don't drink beer. I don't like alcohol, just to let y'all know. So it wouldn't be a beer. I mean, I'd drink it if I had to. But it's Olaf Swamp, Jimmy. Jimmy is somebody just like almost like a guru or a bodhisattva. A real deep, loving, caring guy, and something real special about Olaf Swamp. And the record that I have in my collection to represent him to the best of my ability is 10 Years After. He strikes me as being a person who is salt of the earth, very, very grounded, and very much part of the earth and roots and life and humanity. And like I said, I have a few blues records, but I thought this was maybe better than a blues record to represent Olaf Swamp, because 10 years after is blues-based rock. These guys blister when they were at their finest. 10 years after, rocked like nobody. Just super intense. And I picked it up about you, Jimmy, that you still rock. And you're still very intense. And more than blues, you're about being charged with energy and life. So I chose 10 years after to represent you. I hope that comes close. And with that, I'm past 15 minutes, and I'm going to stop. Please leave me comments, people. Love the thread. Thank you, Jonas. And I would have chose you, Jonas, but you stole the cake. You told us, King Crimson. I couldn't have picked better.